Hey everyone, here Ryan with Ray's Latest, and today we're going to talk about Wander Franco, a little update on him, and then some possible outfielders that we can use to bolster this kind of already crowded outfield room that we do currently have. But first, we're just going to start out with the Wander Franco news. He had a court appearance today. It was only about 30-40 minutes. Reports say he did not speak at all and immediately left afterwards, and the decision by the jury and the judge in Supreme Court is supposed to be made December 9th of this year. So I've been reading a lot of reports based on the attorneys for Franco are planning on still filing all the injunctions that they have and all of the appeals and things of that nature, kind of just trying to just get it off the radar. And I'm curious to see how this all turns out. I think for a race perspective, it really does not matter. I do think if he is convicted of the crimes, I'm almost 100% sure the Rays do not have to pay him a single cent. So I think from a Rays perspective, him being convicted, as much as horrible as this sounds, would be better financially for them. But I don't know where the jury's going to go with this, because he's been anywhere from inside mental institutes, because they were saying that he was uneasy and he was not okay with himself, and his family had called the police to kind of get him taken to a facility. So I think that kind of stems to why he's not speaking at all right now. I think that they're kind of trying to see where a possible, not necessarily, he's not going to be claiming insanity or anything of that nature, but kind of trying to see, kind of just feel out the situation and see where he is at mentally, which I personally, I don't think that anybody in that situation would be in a great mental space, because from the evidence that I've seen, it's intriguing to kind of figure out what a possible conviction is going to be. And I'm not 100% certain that he is going to get convicted. And I'm curious to see where the jury does with that. And then if they do end up convicting him December 9th, I'm curious to see how the appeal process works and where they're going to go with Franco after that. But I do think, and I think everybody else kind of knows, that his days in Major League Baseball are over with. I think it's really hard to come back from something like that, even if he is not convicted or found guilty of it. I kind of think it's going to be like a Trevor Bauer situation, where he's kind of blacklisted by Major League Baseball, regardless of innocence or not, because it's just one of those things where it's a really bad PR look for you to have somebody like that on your roster. And I think that's kind of majorly what we've seen with Trevor Bauer, because, I mean, he hasn't been performing the best in Japan and Mexico, wherever he's gone, but there's a Major League roster, there's a starting rotation spot that could use Trevor Bauer in their rotation. And I think everybody knows that. But I think that MLB organizations and MLB owners aren't going to budge on that. And I don't think that he will ever play in Major League Baseball ever again. So I think that we're going to kind of see a Franco move down that route. And I'm not really sure how he's going to approach his baseball career afterwards. I mean, I haven't seen any reports of him taking swings anywhere or anything like that, which he might be. He might not be, though. So I don't really know, but I am curious to kind of see what the jury decides there. And I am interested to kind of see how the Rays handle that situation. I think that being able to terminate his contract would be great for Rays financially, obviously, because we were paying him 11 years, $182 million. So from a Rays perspective, that's absurd. It's a massive contract. I think it was the biggest long-term contract money-wise they've ever paid somebody. So the investment was there to begin with. Get him for 11 years. He was young. He was 20 at the time. It was a no-brainer decision from the Rays' perspective of getting him. It's just really unfortunate how things turned out. So I'm interested to see kind of where they go from there. But to kind of transition over to the other topic that I want to talk about today is some additions to that bolster our outfield room, particularly from a power standpoint. So I've seen a lot of things out about Harrison Bader as being a possible signing. And from a financial perspective, defensively wise, I think that he would be a decent fit but I just don't think that that's what we need. And I think what we need is a corner outfielder that's going to hit you 30 home runs. And Major League, out of all of Major League Baseball last year, the Tampa Bay Rays outfielders had the least amount of home runs. I think the number I saw was 17. It's a crazy number when you think about it. And especially from a corner outfield perspective where you're kind of expecting someone to hit in the 240 to 265 range with 25, 30 homers. That's what you really want out of a corner outfielder. And I get it. Chandler Simpson's playing left field. He's kind of an anomaly in that situation to where he's hitting over 300 and he's getting on base at an astronomical clip. So I think that that's a kind of a guy that him and Mangum are two guys that are necessarily, they don't have power, but you're willing to play them every single day because they do get on base, especially when you have Junior and Aranda in your lineup who will get RBIs for you. So I think from an outfield perspective, kind of where we saw Meisner get the boot to get out, it's the hitting is not there, and that's really what we need from an outfield perspective, because you have the hitting at first, you have it at third, you have it at second. Carson Williams has shown a little bit of upside from a hitting perspective, but I think Taylor Walls at the end of the day is going to be the everyday shortstop. Catching has obviously, other than Mike Zunino in the last 15 years, has been horrible from a hitting perspective. So you need that extra guy in your starting lineup to get you RBIs and get you home runs. And I think it was especially relevant and showed very well this year playing in a minor league park that is extremely hitter friendly with the same dimensions as New Yankee Stadium. And with having the amount of left-handed bats that they did have in that lineup with 310 down the right field line, kind of a short porch, when you saw the home run numbers that low, it was pretty shocking and kind of just a telltale sign of where they need to head in the offseason. And I think that like having Josh Lowe in right field, who's just been so up and down. Like the power is obviously there from him. He can hit it a long ways, but the bat to ball and K rate is just too high for a guy. When you have names on the free agent list, I mean, I'll list a couple. You have Trent Grisham, Austin Hayes, Kiner Falefa, Jesse Winker, Cedric Mullins, Lane Thomas, Mike Yastrzemski. Kind of just to name a few guys kind of in our price range from, I would say, around $5 to $8.5 million annual value. So there's some names, like I know Jesse Winker was out last season for a majority of it with an injury, but the home run numbers are there with him. I mean, he's hit over 20 home runs at a pretty consistent rate. But I think from a Bader perspective, a lot of things that I've seen, he doesn't have the power. And I just don't think that's an addition that we necessarily need. And Cedric Mullins, that's an interesting name. He's kind of got that semi-star power. When you see his name, you're like, oh, I know who that is. But like you could say people from Seattle, when the Rays come to town and they see Cameron Meisner in right field, people are going to be kind of questioning like, oh, I don't really know who that guy is, which I feel like the Rays have kind of fallen into that pretty like a decent amount of times, I would say, in the last couple of years, where there's kind of guys in there that as a Rays fan, you obviously know who they are because you see them in the lineup every day. But there's some of those guys that it's like the lineup's kind of just lacking that star power outside of the likes of Brandon Lau and Junior Caminero. And a lot of people know the names of Aranda, who was one of the best hitting first basemen in baseball this year. Should have been an all-star. But I think just from an outfield and a corner outfield perspective, you got to go after a guy that's going to get you 25 to 30 home runs. And if he hits 250, oh well. I mean, I'll take it. If he gets anywhere close to 100 RBIs with 25 to 30 homers, I think that's kind of a thing where you take that no matter what. And I think if you can get a guy like Trent Grisham or necessarily maybe a Cedric Mullins for $8.5 to $6.5 million, I think that's a guy you kind of have to go after. And I get the position players wise, it's kind of an interesting standpoint financially with where Neander and staff want to go with that. But I think this is the offseason where you kind of just have to go after and get one of them, because there's so many big names out there that are pretty solid, and you could get good ABs and good production for a guy not necessarily so much money. So I'm really curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments any outfield guys that you particularly would like to see in a Rays uniform next season, or possibly anything you want Neander to do from a free agent standpoint. Let me know, and you guys have a great one.